All right, guys, we got a treat for you. This is a familiar voice on podcasts. If you've listened to us, he's been on our podcast way back when. He's been on Double U's podcast. He's put out training tips. If you follow him on Instagram, Best Bird Dogs, you will get all kinds of tidbits of information. There's little nuggets, as he just said, of stuff. And he's running his own podcast now. And you go to it, you listen, you're going to pick up more information. So we got Jared Moss on with us today. And Jared, I really appreciate you taking your time out of your day. I know you're busy training dogs. Just to have you on, and I'm excited to kind of have this conversation with you because I feel like for the most part, you and I see a lot on the same level.
I agree. Yeah.
And
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to riff with you. I think I'm really excited about your podcast ever since you started on the Houndsman XP podcast, singling out and kind of helping us teach. What is it? Learn.
Teach, train, and learn. TTL.
That's right. Teach, train, learn. I knew I was missing one, but I try to catch your podcast weekly because and you and I are chatting, even though I do focus a ton of my work on bird dogs and you do hounds, and then you do your work, your day-to-day work.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot that melds over, and I think there's a lot of small little tips and tricks that we can pick up just from listening to other styles and other methods and other people that are working dogs. So
yeah, I mean, again, if you watch the different disciplines, and when I say disciplines, I mean, different dog breeds, different, just in the police dog world, you got the police dog side, you've got the sport dog side, right. You've got the pet dog side of that. Like there's different disciplines in each breed. If you watch these dogs work and you watch these guys that, have a good handle on their dog, like you have to appreciate that no matter what it is.
Right. No doubt.
And I do. Like I want to learn. I want to be better than I was yesterday. And of course I know I'm going to screw up tomorrow and have to go back and redo things because that's just a part of the learning process. But you posted a video a week or two ago, and I think you'd sent it to me, and I'd already seen it. And you'd sent it to me, and I'm like, yep, I'm sharing that because you were talking about one step. And I had this conversation with my training group as of yesterday. Yesterday, I had this conversation that comes up all the time. Guys, if you don't have a good foundation and you don't spend the time doing the little things, then you're never going to get where you are with the big things. So explain that reel that you made with that, what you were doing, what so people can go back and watch it and actually see it.
Yeah. So on that particular reel, I actually had Emma, who is I think almost 4.5 now, and in that reel, Emma was just like 6-month-old puppy, 8-month-old puppy, and I was teaching her what we call the stand command, which builds into whoa, and the whole reel was about. With the young dogs, you have to be super patient and kind of slow and just keep asking. I use that kind of a lot of times when I'm working with young dogs and people come to work with us and they're like, hey, my pup's, he's 6 months and he's not doing this and I can't get him to do that. No. And I'm like, whoa, back up. What does he know and what can we build off of and what can we build on? And let's take those small little things and build and build and build. And I think sometimes I get in a rush. A lot of us get in a rush. So we want that end product. And so we push through the puppy stuff real quick. And we're having some success. But maybe we're not slow and methodical and kind of building the foundation like one block at a time, getting the foundation down when you can do that so young. And so a lot of times I'm like, hey, let's just slow down. Let's pause for a second. I know you want to go work on getting your bird dog steady to flush and shot, but let's get his groundwork. Let's get him patterning with you, and let's get him to point and hold point before we do anything else. And that's kind of what I was focused on that reel was it's okay with those young dogs. If you ask them to stand, and they stand for 10 seconds, and then their mind drifts, and they see the Tweety bird, or the mind drifts because the neighbor's dog comes over. It's like, instead of losing your cool and getting all, fussy with the lead or giving a kind of a correction, just go back up and ask again. And those small little asks over time, all of a sudden, the young dog's like, oh, I know what you're asking me to do. I get it. And then you're starting to build on that. That makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's going to be the theme behind this podcast is baby steps and foundation. You and I just had a quick conversation about there's so much molding that can take place with a young dog. And I think for me, I think that's why I love dog training, is taking that clay, the puppy,
Yeah.
and molding it into the finished product. And although I want to be successful and productive with my finished product, the funnest part about the whole process or the journey is actually watching that dog learn and grow and become the finished product.
I love that word journey, because you're spot on. It's like that's what gets my thrill anymore today. I look at my hound pack right now, and I have an 8-year-old dog, a 10-year-old dog, and then I'm missing my 4, 5, 6, 3-year-old dogs, because I end up, anyway, for whatever reason, I need a new shotgun for my boy to shoot in the trap club, and so I end up selling one of those dogs that's in his prime, kicking butt, and I'm like, that's okay, because I got some puppies to play with. I got some young dogs, and that's where my thrill is bringing those young dogs up and putting it all together, so it is a journey. I think you and I were talking. I saw your video the other day. You were trying to get the pups used to the truck bed, and I've messaged you this many times about how I love your puppy series in the podcast and in the videos on your social media, because it's like, man, how come I didn't think of that? And you actually had a couple different videos. One video was like a step up onto the board that led into the back of the pickup, and it had some nice carpet on there so the pups weren't scratching and crawling. And man, you're like, I don't know how many times you've done that with your pups, but all of a sudden they were all in the back of the truck, and I was like, look at that. In a matter of 30 seconds, it took him a couple minutes to set it up, but in a matter of 30 seconds, all those pups figured out how to get from the ground into the back of the truck. And I didn't hear you say a word the whole time. You were just letting them explore and learn and use their curiosity. And it's funny, because then you see the guy with the 2-year-old hound, and he can't even get him to load. And you've got 6-month-old puppies that are just in and out, playing around, having fun. So
3 months old, and that was the first time they had ever seen that. First time they was in the back of the truck ever.
So that blows my mind, because I would have guessed they were 6 to 8 months, just the way they moved. Their bodies were moving up through there. 3 months old, and they're blowing up in the. Yep. That's awesome.
And I know, like I said, I probably talked about this before. Everybody watches the stuff. I spend a lot of time. Well, I spend a lot of time prepping my dogs. Like you said, I before I ever go to the woods, those dogs will be in that truck 100 times. They'll be in it. I'll put the dog box in it, and I'll feed them inside the dog box, and then. I'll put them up there. I'll shut the dog box and make them wait for 5 minutes, and then I'll feed them. And then the next step is I'm taking them 2.5 miles to where the dumpsters are from my house. So when I take the trash off, they're in the back of the truck. They ride their first trip is 2.5 miles. And I come back, we let them out, and we have a big party. And I just continue that process. And it, like you said, it takes, and y'all heard me say it takes 5 minutes a day, and it's at feeding time. I use feeding time because most of my hounds, I talked about it, most of my hounds are very food driven, very food. I'm laying tracks for those dogs in the morning and making them run tracks to find their food. And in the evening, I'll take and do the loading series, or I'll do, I'm making them stand and wait, and then I make them sit and wait. Like, I'm doing something with them all the time.
So one of these questions I wanted to ask you the other day, like you get your 8-week-old puppy at home, He's weaned off. Let's say you just got him. I know you raised your own, but let's say you just got that 8-week-old pup. What's the very first thing you're trying to mold? What's the very first thing you like to teach?
Well,
Maybe I wanted you to have to think about that for a sec, because it's like I caught myself the other day. I was like, what's the very first thing I would teach that 8-week-old puppy?
mine's kind of like a melting pot. The first thing I do, and I'm actually doing a little testing process for me.
Cool.
The first thing I want to teach them is to come to me.
Come to me.
So everything that I do is food from me or from the ground. When and like the pups that you've seen in the truck, there's 2 high tans and 2 walkers. They're litter mates. The first thing I do with, I mean, of course I raise those, but the first thing I do when I get those pups is I will whistle or holler, whatever, and I drop a few kibbles on the ground, and
Gotcha.
and I have them coming to me. And you and I talked about, one of the things that you just said. You're like, why didn't I think of that? Let me tell you my aha moment. We've all raised pups, and you got a litter of pups, and you let them out of the pen to go feed, or you let them out. I'm blessed. My pups run loose from daylight till dark, and I put them up at dark.
Yeah.
So I'm very lucky where I live and my neighbors, that I live far enough away, and if the dogs do get down there. But trying to put 6 or 8 pups in a pen is like herding cats.
It's so fun.
Like I used to get so mad. Like I'm telling you, I used to see red trying to chase. I'd get one in, and then I have to go chase 2 down.
Yep.
And when I started learning the food motivation stuff,
Right.
and this has been years ago, I started every time that I put them in the pen, they got fed. And then I'm like, okay, so I've got to figure out how to tweak this a little bit. So I tell my dogs to kennel.
Yeah.
That's the term that I use for them to get in a pen. And I have a handful of food, so I don't feed them a bowl. I don't feed them like I used to. I used to feed them a bowl every time.
Right.
So I go to the pen, I tell them kennel, and I go to the pen and I drop that kibble in their pen. And I don't have to chase none of them. They go in there, they're sniffing around, they're eating their food. I shut the pen. They've had a good experience. Dad hadn't had to chase me down and grab me up
Right.
by the nape of the neck and fussing and cussing and carrying on. And when I figured that out, I looked at myself and I'm like, you're a dummy. Like, why have you not been doing this for years?
Right. Years.
So aha moment, it was that aha moment. And I can go out my back door right now and say kennel, and them 4 puppies will knock the back out of the door to get in their pen. And now I'm transitioning into praising them and food. So now I'm transitioning from, I don't want to feed them every time. They're 4 months old. They know the routine. So
Right.
twice a week, I'm going in. I'm telling them to get in there, and I go in there, and we have a party. It's a good thing, We play good. I rub them up. People don't understand that tactile touch has so much meaning to a dog if it's used correctly. And I mean, even if you're correcting a dog, sometimes that little bit of tactile will snap them right out of that behavior. But praising a dog will go a long way. You don't always have to have a motive, like a food or a toy or whatever. Of course, you know that. I'm just talking out loud.
No, I think these are awesome tips. So here's one thing I've learned in the last 12 years of hound hunting. It was like some of the best houndsmen I know, and you guys have said this on your show multiple times, is they're doing things on their day-to-day, feeding, cleaning, airing dogs. Their day-to-day setup is just routine for you. You've been doing it for so long that it's just second nature. And somebody new that comes into the sport looks at it and goes, I wonder why he's feeding those pups, and then why is he doing it that way, and I think sometimes as a trainer, there's times when you get so habitual that you're just doing your routine and it seems second nature to you. Somebody new is looking at it going, holy cow, that's a heck of a lot easier way to do what you're talking about right there. You're teaching those dogs to kennel, and then that's going to transition into all kinds of things, getting in the truck or, getting into a kennel crate or whatever later on. And so I guess the whole reason, what my point is some of the best trainers and houndsmen out there, sometimes they're like, duh, that's just second nature. But for the first time seeing it, you're like, oh, that's a really easy way to teach or mold. I think with these young dogs, like you and I are talking about, there's all these little things, like you're teaching those dogs to go in the kennel and teach them to get in the truck. And the other day I had a little 5-month pup in for board and train, and one of my staff members is like, hey, when we put him up at night in the shed to keep warm, he hates the crate. He's just fighting the crate. And I'm like, okay. So I grab him the next day, and him and I are playing a game, get the kibble in the back of the crate. And, in a different location, we moved the location. We changed everything up. Him and I are doing our here, heel, sit down place. And then I start throwing some kibble in the back of that. And the first time I threw it in the back of a different crate, big old crate, he kind of looked around, took one step in, sniffed around. He's like, not quite. And I threw 3 pieces in the back, and he was like, oh, yeah, I'll go for 3 pieces. And then after 5 minutes of him and I playing a game, I had that little guy going in and out of a crate like it was nothing, right? So we changed location, we changed tactics, and now we just turned what was a difficult thing for him, a difficult task for him, into a game, and he just fell in love with it.
Yeah, and it took you 5 minutes.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we have some threshold issues in the law enforcement side, getting in and out of a car. I mean, a lot of dogs don't like to load. They don't like, especially if they've had a bad experience in a vehicle. We throw the toy through the car, so they have to go up and out, and then we shut the door and throw it into the car, and then, yeah, same purpose and same actual. I mean, it's exact, and we're using the same method in 2 different worlds.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things you said there that I got 2 things for you. The first one was, the things that if you've been doing this a long time and you think it's second nature, like, we forget things. I was at a training a month ago and was sitting watching another master trainer work dogs, and he started doing this one exercise, and I'm like, oh yeah, I used to do that 15 years ago. Haven't done it since. And I'm like, I forgot about it. Like, I just forgot about it.
Right.
It works. The principle works. The theory behind what he was doing, it works. And I'm not sure exactly why I got away from it, but I did. But I forgot that I had that in my toolbox too. And it was a good reminder, like, oh, don't forget about that. You may need that one day.
Right.
Yeah. And the second thing is, so what is the first thing you teach your dogs?
Again, we get to raise a lot of our puppies, and so we're our big chores morning, afternoon, and night are like you're saying, hey, let's get them all out, let's get this place clean and secure. And when they're 4 weeks, it's okay, but by the time they're 8 weeks, it's like herding cats. Mm-hmm. So like you said, we're using food to lure them into places. Hey, out of the big whelping box into this crate for 10 minutes while we clean this. And so how do we get 6 puppies into different crates? We lure them with food, we play games. But recall, I think, is the biggest one for me. Just from safety, if nothing else, it's a game and it's safe. It's just, hey, pup, when I whistle or I call or, I hear, then that's come to me. And we're doing a lot of food-based rewards with that. Here's kind of a funny thing. I had a client come in the other day, and they had bought a pup from us, and they brought their pup back for a 30-day puppy program. And I said, hey, how's feeding time going? They're like, oh, great. We just poured it in the dish. And I was like, man, I messed up. I messed up when you took the pup home because I didn't get you set up the right way, or you didn't listen, or you got busy. But I'm like, hey, anyway, when they picked up the dog 30 days later, I was like, hey, when you do feeding time, I want you to work on these 3 things. And the light bulb just clicked in their brain. They looked at me like, oh, yeah, that's a really good idea. And I'm like, how did you not know? Oh, you had a dog for 6 months from us, and you still didn't know, some of the things that you could do at feeding time that's going to pay huge dividends later.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like you're making it almost automatic for the dog when they're a baby and they're a puppy. So when they're older, they don't even blink. When you call them at the end of, I had a lion track the other day and the dogs were pounding up, pounding up, pounding. I was like, it's time to go home. And one of the dogs didn't come when I called her, and I was so mad. I was so mad that she would not come home. She did not want to quit the track, but I'm like, you know better now. Where have I anyway? So it's super handy when you need a dog to come home or a safety issue to get that dog to come back to you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean that's the same thing I said. They come to me. That's the first thing I teach. And even in the detection side, we get these dogs from vendors or overseas or wherever, and they're year and a half old. They don't have a handle on them. Like they're wired for sound. Like they're go 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 go. And I always tell my detection guys, if you want to put one thing of obedience on your dog, it's recall. You have to. That dog slips out of a car out on a main highway. You got to be able to get him back. And some of these guys couldn't catch their dogs if they were off lead if they had to. So I don't care what stage it is. I think that's the most important thing the dog should learn.
I agree. Well, I went pheasant hunting today with some individuals that have a dog from us. Anyway, their dog's been here with training. I've worked with them multiple times. Anyway, today we're hunting with that dog, and I was trying to help them know, hey, if you give the turn command, your finger better be on the button because she's blowing you off. So they'd say ho for a turn, and that dog wouldn't even. She'd say ho 6-7 times, and I'm like, whoa, stop, everybody, stop for a second. And I said, ma'am, you're saying ho. On the third time, you're actually giving the E. You're stimulating the dog. I said, what you're doing is conditioning her to blow you off. She's going to blow you off 2 times and wait for the E-caller. And just in that few minutes of stopping and talking to her, she's like, oh, I can see that I'm actually making this worse than I. And to her, she thought she was being nice and kind and showing grace to the dog or whatever she thought she was doing. I'm like, you're actually making this whole thing worse. When you say ho, your finger's on the button. She knows, because I've already taught her, that when you say ho, by golly, she better turn. And 10 minutes later, ho, 1 time. 20 minutes later, she says, Jared, I haven't had to touch the collar for the last 5 or 10 minutes. And we were trying to keep him off of a busy road. We were hunting along a busy road on that stretch, and the dogs wanted to fade that way because of the cover. And I said, hey, we got to keep them away from that road. And so, we were kind of ho, 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 keep them this way. But it's mind-boggling to me that, anyway, they're just new with bird dogs, and she didn't realize what she was doing.
Yeah.
But as simple as recall or simple as turn, it's not complicated, but you got to be consistent and don't think that you're disciplining the dog or being too harsh on the dog. Once he knows the command, we've jumped from molding puppies to talking about finished work. I'm sorry, but
that's all right.
If she's done I know she's done the puppy work, so she doesn't need to be given that 1.5-year-old that much leeway, right? She did all of her puppy work. We did all the e-car work. It's like she's over there flipping you the bird, lady. She's like, oh, I'm not ready. So
I was teaching a class last month, and same principle, different behavior. But I actually I asked the guy if he knew what classical conditioning was, and he said, yeah, I understand it. And I said, explain it to me. Of course, he explained it to me. And I said, every time you tell that dog heel and the dog does not heel, you are classical conditioning a bad habit.
Correct.
Exactly what she's doing. When you wait to that 3rd or 4th time before you apply pressure, then you are classical conditioning that behavior. And people don't understand that, yes, it's supposed to be classical conditioning, supposed to be the best, good thing, right? We're teaching good behaviors. But you can also cause bad behaviors through the same principle.
Yep.
So, back to puppies.
So I guess what we're saying is with the puppies, if we do all these little things to begin with, we are doing the classical, conditioning, but for the right things. Get in the kennel, get in the truck, instead of opening the kennel and then chasing the dog down.
So I posted a little short reel. I was feeding my dogs the other day, and I was doing collar pressure. I was pulling on the collars and jerk, just pulling on them and messing with them and stuff while they're
I
feeding.
saw that. Yeah, I saw that. What were you trying to do there?
So I learned this with the police side, and of course the dogs are a lot older. Some dogs are collar sensitive, and because if they've had pressure put on them, they don't like it. So at feeding time, you put pressure on, you pull the collar, you have your hands on it. A lot of police dogs, and I know you guys can't see me, but I'm touching the bottom of underneath my chin and up in my throat. If a dog's had a lot of pressure on him, he'll be sensitive on this part of his throat, and you can't touch it. Like he will turn on you. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to do this to my pups and see if it matters, see if it does anything. So over a couple years, I'll start pulling on the collar and doing whatever, and I see that it's made a huge difference in leading the dogs. So I had a guy comment and said, yeah, I start leading my dogs way younger than that. And my pups now are 4 months, they're turning 4 months old. And I completely agree. The younger they are, the less restrictive they can be because of their size. They've got to give in to what you're doing. But what I didn't say in that reel, and I didn't comment back to him, is I'm doing exactly what you just talked about. I'm using a lot of luring. So when I'm walking through the yard, I'll have a handful of food sometimes, and I'll have 4 puppies like walking right behind me with the food because they know it's coming. I'm getting ready to hit the bubble gum machine. It's going to hit.
Right.
And so a lot of that stuff, I don't, the reels you don't have time to explain all that and stuff.
Sure.
But yes, I do a lot of luring and get that dog walking beside me comfortably before I start putting the lead on him. I have got a flex pole, and I know some people won't know what that is, but you can Google it. But it's a stake that goes in the ground. It looks like a fishing pole, and it's got a lead coming off the end of it. It'll turn 360 degrees. And if I get older dogs that fight the lead, I'll put them on that flex pole, and I'll feed them inside that circle because they have an 8-foot radius, so a 16-foot radius. They can run around, and they can't go past that. And if I've got an older dog that I get, or I have lead problems with an older dog, I'll put them on that flex pole and feed them inside it. And then that way, when they hit that boundary, when they hit that 8 foot, they can't go any further. And like I said, dogs will flop like a fish out of water, and some will lay down on you, some will roll over, some of them squall. We've all seen it, right? Yeah. So to get back to that, I use a lot of luring before I ever put a lead or something on my dog. And I've got a couple of short leads that are very thin and light. And I think you may actually use this where you just let them drag it.
Yes.
And put that pressure. They learn that, oh, that's a little bit of pressure there. Okay, that's okay. It's not a bad thing.
Right.
So I didn't get to explain that in the reel, but I just wanted to bring that out in case somebody had questions. That it's just a little quick thing I do. I didn't have a lot of time that evening, so I sat on a 5-gallon bucket while he was eating and played with their collars.
Right.
So that's what I did.
And that's what you had time for that day.
Mm-hmm.
Not only did you condition with a collar, but you putting your hands down in there, maybe stopping one pup from eating for a second and then going to another pup. You're also, in a way, when I was watching that, I'm like, man, he's also getting in there and fidgeting with everybody while they're eating. And if you have somebody that's food aggressive, they're going to show their head right there. They're going to maybe turn at you and maybe bark at you or growl at you. And it's like, I watched you do that with your pups. Nobody even... No, none of the pups even phased him. And I was like, man, he's doing like 3 things at once.
And actually, go ahead.
I love when you can spend 5 minutes and you're knocking out 3 or 4 things at one time, and the dogs don't know any different, but you're sitting there looking at your pups going, cool, nobody's food aggressive, nobody's getting mad, nobody's throwing a fit. That was 5 minutes.
And I did have one that was a little bit growly. And it took me 2 days of I sat with them and watched them. Like I sat right over them like a helicopter parent. I was like, when them bristles come up on your back, you're getting it, girl. And she would do that. She'd start lowering that head and posturing and pop. I give her a pop. She steps back. She's like, oh. And then she looks at me. and then she goes back to eating. 2 days, 2 days of corrections. And when I say corrections, I mean a hand pop. That's what it was, a hand pop. And it's not appeared since. And I will watch her through her adolescence, because you and I both know that food aggression brings so much other stuff later on in life. And if you stop it now, you don't have those problems later on. So you're exactly right what I'm doing when I'm doing something. I'm probably looking at 3 or 4 or 5 things, and people don't really see that, but you called it.
Yeah, it's second nature to you. That little bit of correction right there, like you said, 2 days, and it's probably over for a while now. It's like easy, quick, done with a puppy, instead of having a 1-year-old that's like 50, 60 pounds and teeth are moving. It's like, okay, now I've got a real problem instead of just a little bitty problem. So
yeah, and I've seen, in fact, I had somebody message me tonight, kind of different scenario, but like, if you have a dog that starts to get food aggressive, most of the time, in my experience, you're gonna have problems either at dead game or at the tree. Like something. It's going to show its head somewhere.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I'm saying is I think you're saving you a stitch up bill later. When you got 2-year-old dogs at a tree and somebody makes a bad shot on a lion or a bear, and you've got a live animal on the ground, and then anyway, you got dogs beaten up, and then you got dogs being possessive of the game, and so you're just teaching her right there, hey, we don't do it that way here. And smart dogs pick that up, man. It's 2 or 3 times, and they're like, "Yo, we don't do that here. That's just not how we do things." So
pack order. I mean, that's all it is. It's pack order.
Right.
Yeah. You're not the boss. Dad is.
Yep.
So
you move from recall. What's one of your next ones with your hounds?
The Journey on Houndsman XP has teamed up with One TDC. This dual-action support for oral health and mobility in our dogs. This unique supplement is so effective that it is recommended by top veterinarian experts worldwide to maintain and improve our dog's health in 4 different areas. Their oral health, hips, joints, and muscles, skin, coat, energy, and recovery. Guys, I've been using this product for the last 6 months, and it has been a game changer for me. If you're looking for something to help with the overall health of your dog, go to worksowell.com and give this product a try. It is highly recommended by Houndsman XP here on The Journey. With puppies?
Yeah.
I tell you what, Jared, I've really got on this kick with Miguel and Lewis from Spain on trailing. I'm using food now, and it takes a little prep work. It's not you just don't go out there and drag a drag and the pups go do it. It's got to, going back to those baby steps you like to use. I've got a scent pad that I put the scent on. I started with these pups at 8 weeks old. I started with them. I've done the scent pad work for 7 or 10 days. And then the first drag was, 10 foot maybe behind a little blueberry bush that I have here in the yard. And then, I made it longer. And the reason I'm not showing those videos now is because I've basically run out of space. I've run every track that I can run here in this yard and in the field beside me. And I've got the dogs up to several hours old. And what I'm seeing with this group is that they're running with their head. They're bobbing and weaving a lot. They will take a track and work it out, but they're cutting and slashing it. So I kind of already know. These pups aren't even 4 months. They're, like I said, they just turned 4. I kind of know what I'm getting already with them.
Right. So break that down for me just a little bit. Like, if I'm a first-time guy, I've got this piece of cloth or a pad, or what are you putting the scent on to begin with?
So I made, and again, a guy texted me the other day and says, "What did you make that of?" But I took a mat from Tractor Supply that's got holes cut in it. It's a mat, and I cut it in like a 4x4 square, and we tied yarn or like an old cut up T-shirt. We tied it like in boat. We tied it up on it, so it looks like a green and gold pad.
What was the material of the mat?
It's
like
rubber.
A rubber mat?
Mm-hmm.
Rubber.
It's kind of like a horse mat, but it's got holes in it the size of a quarter.
I've seen those ones. Okay.
Yeah. So and I just cut it. I just cut a section out of it, and then. But I will tell you this: this has been trial and error for me because this is the second group of pups I've done it on, and I'm learning as I go a little bit.
Yeah.
So if you put a flat towel out, if you just stretch a towel out, because I had one guy do that, and he sent me a video. He goes, "My dogs won't get near of it," and I watched the video, and I'm like, "It ain't the food; it's the towel. The towel is something that's concerning the dog." So
they're not conditioned to the towel.
So I said, roll it up and roll the towel around the outside of the bowl. That takes that away. And then another guy had drowned the towel in odor. So it overwhelmed their sensories, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know what this is, so I'm not getting close to it." Yeah. So, a little bit goes a long way. I got a little squirt bottle. I pour my scent in, and I mix it with water to dilute it just a little bit. And I put 2 or 3 little squirts on my pad, set my bowl down. If the dogs what I did with these pups is the first time I put the pad down, I dropped kibble in the pad. And the pad I actually use for nose work because I can hide, because those holes in it, I can hide food down in it, and they've got to work through it to find it. So,
gotcha.
And in fact, I seen that on the internet with some, I don't know what kind of, it was something games with dog puppies or whatever, brain games or whatever. So I do that, and then after 7 to 10 days of imprinting that odor, every time they eat, that odor's there. So it's a positive association. I've got this odor, and don't matter what it is. You can use toilet water; it don't matter. Good. I got an odor, and every time that odor's there, I get fed. So positive. And then I just take it from there and start. I've got an old piece of tanned bear hide. It's a 4x4 square that I use to do the drag. And we can get into all that. I don't care for that scent picture because you've got, I've got a footprint dragging through the grass. That's not normal. That's not what the dogs are going to smell in reality. It's going to be like connecting the dots with the odor. So you have to understand what you're doing. And again, what are you classical conditioning? You don't want your dog running a sled because that's basically what you're doing with the drag. So,
but will you drag a few short drags to begin with? Like those pups, the first time you do it, like you said, a 10-foot drag, will you just do a constant 10-foot drag for the first time and then start adding in more track type scent? Yeah,
when they understand, and you'll know, you can watch them pups, and again, classical conditioning, I whistle, and when I whistle, they know they're going to get fed, so they come and they start searching the ground, and they pick up the odor. The odor's positive for them, and they track it to the food, and as they start understanding the task, I lengthen it.
Gotcha.
And then once they get pretty good at the length, and when I say length, I mean 100 yards. These are puppies. Puppies. These are puppies.
Babies. Yeah.
Right. So don't expect him to run no 2-mile track. It's 8 hours old. And then I start adding age to the track. And when I add age, I shorten the track back down.
Gotcha.
And there's going to be failures. The dogs, there's several days that my pups did not want to do it. They run off, or I've got a horse barn right beside my property. The horses got to carrying on. It distracted them. So I give them 15 minutes, and if they don't do it, I go pick the food up. And then that evening, I go out and do the loading in the truck or, some other exercise. I don't beat them to death with the tracking. And I haven't, like I said, these pups are 4. They turned 4 months. They turned 4 months old this past Monday. So I have done a lot of different things. Like you said, luring them. I've loaded them in the truck. I have um, put the food up high on unstable stuff, down low, changed the location. So, like you said, I fool with their collars while I've fed them. I've done all kinds of things with them. So I don't necessarily just do one exercise at a time.
Yeah. Right.
That makes sense.
But
Yeah.
you're waking up. I remember an old book that I read, one of my very first books. It was like chapter one was, I can't remember, but I remember chapter two was, the way this gentleman wrote it was Wakening the Nose, and that was his title, and that stuck with me forever.
Mm-hmm.
In the bird dog world, I do the same thing with 8-week-old puppy, 10-week-old puppy. I got him coming to me, and I'm grabbing, typically at that point, a dead bird, a fresh killed bird that day that I trained with, and I'm getting in. I grab the whole litter and I'm moving the bird around and playing with them, and I want to see if they'll nose it or mouth it or get excited with it, and I'm just trying to get them to wake up that nose,
Mm-hmm.
because that's, I mean, trying to get them to use their nose on is what we're going to do for the rest of their life, right? So it's like, hey, let's see if there's some natural instinct in this litter, and who's a little more mouthy, who's willing to pick it up, who might be afraid of it. They're like, they smell it and they back up and go, whoa, I've never smelled that before. And so it's interesting, two different, completely different, hound dogs and bird dogs, and yet you're doing recall, I'm doing recall, you're waking up the dog's nose and creating a positive with an odor, and I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm trying to get those dogs excited about an odor.
Yeah, I'm, and like I said, so that's the second thing that I've been doing. But along the way, I'm also like I just said, I'm implementing loading and leading and
Right.
stay. I've been very big on. Um, I don't I don't like my dogs jumping out of the box and running over top of me. So that's something else that in that 0 to 6 month of age, I've got them in the dog box and I make them wait, and I'll open the door, and if they stay, I feed them a handful of food. So I'm still using food for the majority of their foundation training, and
Yeah.
and just so everybody understands, I can get way more reps in with food. That's
Right.
the kicker. I can do a whole feeding session and get 50 reps in during a feeding session if I'm doing something that would require that.
And that pup's having fun. He doesn't know. He has
Mm-mm.
no idea that you're getting 22 reps in.
Mm-mm.
He's just like, whatever. Yeah, every time I do this right, I get fed.
That's
They're
right.
having a game and they're excited. I had a little pup come in for training a couple months ago, and his first couple sessions were, we were just dragging the long line, trying to get him used to that, like we talked about a minute ago. And about the third day, I started like, man, he's not having fun. He's not excited. So we backed up and did a few food sessions with him for a couple of days. And man, all of a sudden I'd go to his kennel and he's like, he saw me coming and he knew that he was going to get some fun time, right? Some food. Everything was clicking in his mind like, hey, this is fun. I want to go do this. What are we doing today? Instead of, oh crap. So you're with that, little puppies doing these 20, like you said, a bunch of little reps in 15 minutes, 10 minutes of feeding time.
Yeah, and what?
At, that adds up.
Yeah, and one thing people have to understand when we're talking about puppies and foundation stuff, it can't be cumbersome. And you've said it 3 or 4 times. It has to be fun,
Fun.
because if it's not fun, it's not. They're not going to continue to do it. Dogs are going to do anything they can for self preservation, whatever satisfies them. And
Right.
we're just. I hate to use the word manipulating, because we
We're
are.
molding.
But yeah, we're molding. Let's use I like the word mold better.
Yeah.
I'm molding and shaping that behavior, what I want from the dog, and then I pair it with a word. I call it
Right.
back chaining. I always have them doing the behavior first, and then I add the word to it.
I love that word. Man, where's that word been for 15 years?
What's that, back chaining?
Back chaining. I
Yeah,
love that word,
yeah. I mean,
because I tell my clients that all the time. Like, we teach this dog to whoa without saying whoa. We do all the reps on the line, teaching them with the cord, and then we layer the word on top of the action. The dog's already doing the action, and he pairs the two together and goes boom. I like back chaining. That's a great word.
yeah. I mean, when I was Yeah, I mean that's how we do when we do obedience. The dog knows how to sit. We don't teach him. Dog knows how to lay down. Dog knows how to stand. They do that naturally. We just
Right.
we just pair the word when they do the behavior.
Yep.
So yeah, same thing. And I've gotten really lax with. I mean, I have got not the knowledge to do some phenomenal things, and I don't. As much time as I spend with them, I don't spend enough because the goal with these puppies, this litter here, which is the B litter for me, like I want to be able to be walking through the woods, my old dog's open, and them look at me and say, "Dad, can I go?" Not just take off and try to pull your hand out of socket with a lead. And I've had dogs like that before, but I did not accomplish it the way that I would now. It was more compulsion. It was not. It was not by capping their drive, which I completely understand now. And so that's a goal with this litter is to be able to walk with them, and them ask me, "Can I go? Can I go?"
Right. How cool would that be? That's a lot of conditioning, but that would be very cool.
Yes. Like I said, I've done it. I had a dog before that I could do that with, and I've not had it. I've not done it since. But then I didn't even know what I was doing. I mean, I literally
Sure.
was correcting the dog into submissions. What I was doing, and that's not. No, I want them ears perked up, and body language and posture. I want a different body language from these dogs.
Yeah. Do you teach your hounds after you've done some of this? Do you teach sit with the food?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's just teaching patience. Like I said, I don't want them running out of the. I mean, I've had dogs before that you open that dog box and they literally run over top of you. I mean, they
Yeah.
gone. It's okay for you to get gone, but do it when I tell you to, and don't act like an idiot while you're doing it.
Right.
Yeah, so I first teach them to stand and be patient.
Stand.
Yep, stand and be patient because most of them they'll freeze up, they'll lock up, and then once they do that, then we hold it a little bit longer. And it's so funny to watch this process because I'm doing it with these right now. I've got one now. He'll plop a squat.
You got to get your little girl the video you're doing it one night, so I send it to me.
I will. So
I'm excited.
I've got one that'll plop a squat pretty fast. Man, he'll sit. As soon as you make him wait 10 seconds, boom, he'll sit down.
Oh.
And then what happens is, once he does it, the little female will do it. It's like a chain reaction. It's like once you get one to do it, like it doesn't monkey see, monkey do, right?
Yes.
Dogs learn so much from each other.
Fast.
But yeah, so Bridger will be the first one that sits, and the other ones will follow suit. Now, Briggs, which is my hard-headed one, he's always the last, but he's the puppy that wanders the furthest. He's the one that's out into stuff that you're like, no, don't do that. Like this morning, he was down here and had the big white horse bait up, and I'm like, Bridger, like, no. So I squall at him, and he's like, what, Dad? So I get him back, but yeah, so I've got a hard-headed one in the bunch. But yeah, monkey see, monkey do.
That's so cool that you're already teaching him to wait, and then the one pup's learn, if I wait here, sit down. Are you then rewarding with some food, or is the reward just freedom? Or
so what I'm doing? Yes, I'm rewarding. This is at feeding time. I'm doing this at feeding time. So what I started doing is as soon as he sit, I put the bowl of food in front of him. And then 2 days later, I make him sit, and then she sit, and then I put the bowl in front of her.
Gotcha.
And then, like I said, as soon as she set, Bronx, he's like, so it's like I said, it's a chain reaction. Like once they figure it out, as soon as I sit down, I get fed, and then I change the duration. And I'm not to that point yet, but I'm getting to that point where I'm at.
So do you think when that little female saw the first dog sit and he got fed the night before, do you think she was intelligent enough a couple of days later to be like, man, I'm going to sit down because I want to get the food? Do you think that they think like that?
I mean, again, I think monkey see, monkey do. I think she saw that it benefited him, and I'm gonna
Yeah,
get
she saw
some.
he got fed
Yeah,
first the night
right.
before, right?
Yeah.
I think some of those there's times when I think dogs are smarter than we give them credit, and it's like the third or fourth rep, those smart dogs are like, why is he getting fed first?
Mm-hmm.
And then they speed up their process, and then like you said, you rewarded her the next night, and now she's like, it's like, oh, that cemented in her mind. Cool, I know what we're doing now.
Yeah. So I've got
We stop and wait. I'm going to sit down.
I've got 3 setting. I'm still waiting on Hardhead. So what I may do with him is I may hold him a little bit and make
Yeah,
him. I actually may build his drive a little bit, like hold him back and cause him to get frustrated, and then
yeah,
that works wonders in training too if you're applying it right and whatever. But like if a dog's not getting what the other dogs are getting, but then again, I don't want it to be a possession thing either. Well, like, wait a second, I didn't get this, so now I'm going to get it, and you're not getting it. So you got to be careful. It's a fine balance when you do stuff like that.
sure, sure. This has been a lot. This has been great, man.
Yeah,
A lot of small little things that are. It's like all these little things you're talking about. We could talk for hours, and then it adds up to being, loading in the truck, and they're doing it without. They're reading your body language. You walk up to the trot and drop the tailgate. They're just waiting for the kennel door to open so they can jump in.
well, they've had a
Pretty fun.
positive experience with it for the first 4 months of their life, or the
Yeah,
the first 4 months of their 6 month period. They've had a positive experience with getting in a truck,
right.
and I mean, yeah, it makes your experience, and this is what the journey's about. It makes your experience with that dog. I don't care if it's a hound, bird dog, lab. I don't care. Running dog. I don't care. Search and rescue, police dog. I don't care what it is. It makes your experience with that dog so much better. And Jared, you've probably I've had a handful of these dogs in my life that you don't have to say nothing to them. You don't have to get on them because they're that pleasurable to be around.
Right.
And it all comes from 5 minutes a day.
It does. It's all those little asks along the way, and then you got a 2-year-old that's doing what 6, 8-year-olds are doing, and you've got a 1-year-old that's doing what a 3-year-old's doing, and he's so much further ahead. They want to work, they want to please you, they know they're start. It's like learning how to learn. You're teaching them how to learn. Those little food sessions, those little sessions are awesome, man. It just it's like that pup we just talked about. He didn't really want to do anything the first 3 days. Once I taught him we were having fun, man, after that, I can the training goes lightning fast after that because he's like, cool, what's the next thing? What are we doing next? What are we doing next? And I watch, those food sessions, all of a sudden you've got a dog that comes out of the kennel and he's like, what are we learning today? What are we doing? Like, let's go. And now then you have a 1-year-old that's got the mental maturity of a 3-year-old. It's just awesome.
And you're making it fun. Like I said, it all has to go back to fun and foundation. That's what it should. That's what it should be. The foundation should be fun. And if your foundation's solid, I know we've preached this. If your foundation is solid, no matter what problems you have later on, you can back up, regroup at
Yes,
that foundation, and correct it. And it will be easier to correct. If you
correct.
don't have that foundation, then correction, unless you're a professional or have a professional helping, you may never fix it.
Right.
So
That foundation's so critical. A lot of times I tell my clients it's like with these foundational things that we've taught, if we start going down and we have an issue, let's say we have an issue with the dog and the gun or whatever the issue is, we can always come back a couple of steps, regain that dog's focus, regain his confidence. He knows what you're asking him to do on that little easier task, and then we can go forward again. If you do the foundation right, it'll be your saving grace, man. Because the day you screw up, you're just like, okay, you're not getting it. I messed up. Let's back up a step and regain your confidence, and then we'll try again. I'll try a different method or different idea of how to explain what I'm asking you to do. And the dog goes back and he's like, oh, okay, I'm good. I can do this. You can regain that confidence, move forward again, try again, ask again.
I like that, the little asks. I mean, I like that. I mean, small step, baby steps. And, I hear, again, I'm blessed. I'm able to work with dogs in my career, and I work with, I don't even call it work because I don't feel like it's work to me. But,
Yeah.
I don't have time. I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do that. It takes you 5 minutes to feed your dog. So take that 5 minutes and ask the dog to perform a task. Like,
Task.
it's
Yep.
easy. And, I said this on before. I was reading an article and it says if you spend 18 minutes a day doing something that you love, and it was talking about sports, then you will be better than 93% of everybody else. So 18 minutes a day with your dogs, you're going to be in the top. You're going to be in the top 7% because you're spending more
Right.
time, and you can tell. Like, you can go hunting places and see people work dogs, and you're like, that person spends a lot of time with their dogs because, like you said, they
Right.
don't say nothing. They go to the back of the truck, they drop a tailgate, the dogs come around and they start loading up, or you
Yeah.
know, however. I mean, that's just a short example.
Well, I gotta pay you a compliment. Keep the journey going, man, because it's awesome. I know for you, this is your passion. So, and it takes time out of your day to make these podcasts and for people to. But I I love this platform because I think you can get into some of these conversations further than you can in the reels and the stuff online.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but man, it's free. Like, I can plug into the journey every week and learn something. And everybody that's out there saying, "Oh, I can't figure this out. I'm not Heath Hyatt. I don't have the knowledge." It's like, well, he's giving it to you one step at a time. All these little nuggets along the way, man. Just grab one of those nuggets, work on it till you got that down, then go to the next one, go to the next one. I mean, it's free content that's you're getting a master trainer here that's putting his time on hold and helping. So man, props to Houndsman XP and you guys and Chris and everybody on the team. It's awesome. It's so cool to see. It's very cool to see somebody give selflessly of their time and their talents. And for you, it's fun because you get to talk about what you love to do. But there's a lot of good stuff on all those episodes. There's a lot of good stuff.
Well, I think you can always learn from other. You can always learn something from everybody, even if it's not a method, a training style, a discipline that you don't care for. If you sit back and watch, you're going to pick up something. Um,
Right.
I give this analogy, and I know I'm holding you up. Um, the Dutch guys who I'm good friends with now. In fact,
Right.
the dog that I'm running, and you may have heard me say this. I went to 3 of their seminars, and I'm like, this stuff is junk. Why are they doing it that way? I mean, this doesn't make sense to me. And this, I was a negative about it. And then I got my dog from them. It just ended up working out that way. And I went to another seminar, and it had that aha moment. I'm like, these guys have been in the Dutch police force for 37 years. I don't know nothing what they know. And if
Sure.
you look at the stuff they were doing, they were so successful. I mean, like, knocking it out of the park. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna learn this and try to understand why. And that was the
Wow.
fourth seminar that I had went to before
Right.
I was like, I've got to quit being bullish and open my mind. And, like, it's changed my thought process. It's changed my training. Um, it's made me better by knowing
Yeah.
those guys and learning their technique and their theory. Now, do I use it for every dog? No, I sure don't.
Nope.
But there's dogs that it works phenomenal on.
Right.
So, yeah, you can always learn something from, even if you don't agree with it, if you just
Right.
step back and say, all right, let me see what they're doing, why they're doing it. And that's the thing. I had to ask why. I'm like,
Why?
Why are you running a track up and back? Dogs don't operate like that. And then once they explained the theory behind it and they showed me the success, I'm like, it works. Okay, let's roll with it. Let's go.
Right. Well, the reason why we're doing it that way is because 98% of the time we get this result. Oh, okay.
That works. That's right. Yeah.
I think if we could scream anything, it's like we were talking about before about being open-minded. You got to, man. I mean, I opened my mind this year to the pet world, and it's like for years I'm like, I don't even want to watch anything to do with that. And now I'm over here going, man, there's a lot of cool little things I can dial in and I can add. Why was I so stubborn to not? Yeah, just be open-minded.
Mm-hmm.
I think we get stuck in a rut and we're like, oh, this is how we do it. And just keep doing it. And then that one day you get that dog that's like, he's not picking it up. He's not figuring it out. And now you're like, well, better call Heath and ask Heath what he thinks, and better call James and ask him what he thinks. And it's like, well, you're going to have to completely do it a different way. Do it this way. Oh, okay. Yeah. So,
yeah.
I mean, we can always learn. We
That's
got to
right.
be learning.
That's right. I hope, what was it? Who was it that, was it Teddy Roosevelt that when he passed away and they removed him from his bed, underneath his pillow was a book?
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, he was reading and learning up to the day that he passed away.
Yeah.
Yep. So
that's awesome.
Yep. Well, Jared, I appreciate it, and man, I'm gonna have you back on because we could talk. I mean, conversation could just keep going and going and going and going. We could talk about so many other things. So,
right.
But you guys go to Birddoggin and check Jared out. See what he's got to say. I mean, he's training dogs. Watch his reels. Watch his videos. I'm learning from him. Like, I'm watching them to see what I can pick up because I want to learn. And if I don't know it, then it may be something that I can use down the road.
Yep. I feel the same way. I'm watching your reels going, oh, that's a great idea. I could add that to this.
Yep. Always be learning. That's right. All right, Jared, thank you for helping us teach, train, and learn.